Thank you for having me, Liz.
It's good to see you. We actually haven't seen you in a while. Right after the elections was the last time that we checked in with you, and a lot has happened since then. But let's just recap how you did finally. The results have been certified, and from a statewide perspective, you did pretty well.
Well, we won all 5 statewide contests, so we were very happy with that. There were some doubts, several months back about if we were going to be able to do that. So I'm pretty happy with the results on that level. And I think, generally speaking, given what went on in the country, New York looked pretty good for Democrats.
Yeah, it's interesting when you say that there was a possibility that you might actually have lost 2 of those statewide races. Actually, the comptroller's race and the attorney general's race. The comptroller's race, touch and go right up until about 1 o'clock in the morning on election night. That's a special race for you because, of course, Tom DiNapoli is a Long Islander. He hails from Nassau County.
That's right. Tom's been a friend of mine, and he is from my county. He's a great guy. I think he's done a great job as comptroller. We worked very hard to see that he was successful. We were very, very pleased when it turned out that way.
You were not so lucky when it came to the state Senate, it looks like. And in addition, a particular race in your backyard. We should mention also you are not just state chairman, but also the Nassau County Democratic chairman. You're wearing 2 hats. And Craig Johnson. That's right in your backyard.
Yeah.
And now you are seeing, again, on Long Island, an all-GOP-controlled delegation.
Right. Well, we lost the one we had in Suffolk and the one we had here in Nassau County. You know, we had a very tough time. The state Senate had a tough job, the Democrats in the state Senate across the state. And there were a lot of very tough contests. Unfortunately, it looks like Craig Johnson, I know he's been the winner has been declared, but Craig is looking to see if we can't get a full paper count in Nassau County. There have been some irregularities with the machines and the machine counting. But look, the bottom line is it's unfortunate. It was tough for us out here on the island, in the suburbs. The MTA tax, among other things, took a toll, and Republicans hammered away at that with success in a tough year.
You know, we've actually talked about this, you and I, in the past. I mean, you really can't in New York, and really pretty much anywhere in the country. I mean, you see President Obama doing the same thing, forging a centrist road. You really can't be driven so much by the extreme New York City liberal interest if you expect to hold on to the Senate in a way, for Democrats at any rate, in a way that's going to be a comfortable majority. I mean, what do you think the Senate could have done better to speak to suburban interests particularly?
Well, I think, it was difficult, of course, this whole property tax issue. The suburbs are erupting over taxes. And that's not just Nassau and Suffolk. Look at Westchester, the same thing.
Sure.
Frankly, for that matter, upstate. Property taxes, are the main issue. And I think they needed to do a better job articulating to the public what they have been doing to bring down taxes. The MTA tax, even though it wasn't a property tax per se, it went directly against that argument, and I think that that hurt us.
Well, and also,
I think a lot of us knew it going in.
What do you mean? A lot of you knew going into the election cycle? You mean?
Going into the election cycle, we knew that MTA tax was going to be a major problem.
Well, and the other thing, I mean, look, the reality is when you've got a 32-30 split Senate, and you need to get a budget through, or you need to get an MTA bailout through, you are going to have to force some of your marginal members, like Brian Foley, who got slammed by that MTA payroll tax, to vote yes, because the Republicans were very deft in boxing out the Democrats and refusing to play ball on certain key tax increases.
Well, that's not deft. I don't want to give him that much credit. That's obstinate. But the bottom line of it is when you have a 32-30 majority, you don't have any margin to work with. So everybody has to be on board. And as you know, with Pedro Espada and Hiram Montserrat in the earlier days as members of that 32-30 majority, it was a tough road at times. So, I had a feel for the leadership in the Senate. I've been involved with the county legislature here in Nassau that had a 1-vote majority. I know how tough it is sometimes to bring every single member along, and any one member can hold out and cause a whole lot of problems.
Yeah, but the problem with that, of course, is that the Senate Democrats didn't do themselves any favors. I mean, you had an AEG scandal that broke just weeks before the election, and it proved that the leadership in the Democratic conference was perhaps not acting on the up and up. I mean, we haven't seen if there's going to be a criminal investigation into that, but the IG's report was quite scathing.
Yeah, that report coming out when it did, curious timing right before the election. That's not to say that the charges weren't serious, but you know, as you said, there have been no criminal charges. And the fact of the matter is, you know, there were numbers of things that just made it more difficult for Democrats this year to get the message across that they were fighting for the people's interest, for reductions of property tax increases, and the things that people feel are important. They were unfortunately painted as individuals that you know, didn't have that kind of service in mind, AEG being an example. It's an unfortunate example, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. But coming right before the election, that made it tougher.
And so why do you think it came right before the election? I mean, the Attorney General, Joseph Fish, is a Democrat.
It's not the Attorney General.
Oh, sorry,
was,
pardon me. You're the Inspector General. Yes, of course.
Well, the Inspector General, right.
The Attorney General is a Democrat, but he's not who we're talking about in this instance.
Exactly, and he's not an elected Democrat, and I don't know what motivates someone. I know he certainly didn't call me and ask me for my advice, because I would have just suggested sometime in early December as a perfect date. But that's just, you know, the way you'd like these things to roll, and you just don't have that choice all the time.
Let's work our way down a little bit to the congressional races. Again, here you didn't see a success. You actually ended up losing 6. There were some very tight races, but in the end, how much involvement did the state party have, or was this really being run out of Washington with the Democratic campaign, Congressional Campaign Committee?
Well, let me just start with the premise. I think we did see a lot of success. You know, we did lose 6. The first one we lost in the spring. That was the Massa seat. With that debacle that went on there, that wasn't even, you know, contested that strongly across the board. So
True.
I look at it as 5 contested races in that area. There were numbers of other contested races that we did win, and the last one being the Tim Bishop race here in Suffolk County. That on the absentee ballot count, Tom Gary, our counsel, did a fabulous job making sure those ballots were counted, and Tim Bishop was the beneficiary, and we won that. So we have won numbers of them, and I think that's very important. But yes, we did lose more than we would have liked. I was sorry to see people like Scott Murphy, some of the others go down. As you know, and I don't want to kick it to anybody else, it was a joint effort. The Democratic State Party was helpful and doing what we could. OFA, Organizing for America, was very helpful, did a tremendous job. I think Bill Clinton, by the way, going around the state campaigning and getting the message out was a tremendous asset and saved a lot of seats. You know, he doesn't get enough credit for what he did in that effort. But, you know, look, it was a tough year for congressional Democrats. You saw that across the country. I think New York did very well when you look at the numbers across the country.
You know, Jay, though, when it comes down to it, there were some endorsements by Andrew Cuomo, the governor-elect. He did give some money to the state party to run a coordinated campaign. But at the end of the day, he ended up with $5 million in his campaign kitty, and he's going to use that money to go to war, we think, with the public employee unions, or at least to get his message across in the budget battle. Did he do enough during the elections? Could he have maybe saved the state Senate? Could he have joined with Bill Clinton and saved some of those 6 Democrats who went down to defeat?
Well, Liz, you know, it's unfortunate. The untold story is how much Andrew Cuomo actually did. And, you know, I've heard this, I've read it occasionally in snippets that there's that criticism by some people, not many, out there. A lot of people, I think, know what he did. He gave millions of dollars to the state party.
Well, how much
I
in
know,
the end?
I'm the state party chair. Well, I was over $2 and some odd million.
Huh.
And he was the driving force. I will tell you this, Liz. He was on the phone with me and others, got us moving to make sure we had the strongest and best field operation we have ever had, with people like Neil Quatra from the Hotel Workers Union and Maggie Moran from the laborers, bringing those folks in. He set up, under his direction, a very strong field organization that helped all of these candidates. His endorsements were helpful too, but you know, it's where the money is and the effort. And it's just unfortunate that part of the story has been hidden. I don't know why that's not out. You can see it in the filings. You can see how much Andrew Cuomo did. This was his entire initiative, and I think he did great. Without it, I think we would have lost a lot more seats.
Well, maybe he doesn't want to talk about it because he doesn't want to anger the Republicans. I mean, at the end of the day, you've got a state Senate that's likely run by Republicans. He's going to have to deal with the Republicans, and you saw that didn't work so well for Eliot Spitzer, who made a very public and overt effort to flip the Senate into Democratic hands. Now, didn't necessarily happen on his watch. However, that was something that really angered Joe Bruno, the majority leader, and pretty much poisoned the well going forward for their negotiations into all sorts of policy issues. I mean, do you agree with the premise that Andrew Cuomo might be better off with the Senate under GOP control because it provides him with a foil? There are people who believe that.
No, look, you make the best out of the world you're in and the cards you're dealt. And I think Andrew Cuomo is certainly someone who's going to do that. But one thing about him is he's a gentleman. I think he deals differently with people, perhaps, than some of his predecessors have. I think that will give him some advantage. While I think that Dean Skelos, who I know well, and I respect him, I know him, he's from Nassau County. So we know each other very well. And frankly, he understands that Andrew Cuomo is going to, as the leader in the Democratic Party, fight where a seat becomes open for a Democratic Senate. He doesn't, I think he's not going to begrudge that, and he's not going to be upset by it. It's how the fight is engaged. And I think that if you take out the nastiness and you act like a gentleman, and Andrew Cuomo is a gentleman and he's not nasty, and you do it in the appropriate fashion, it will be fine. But if you have to work with a Republican Senate, election time is over. Now it's time to sit down and work, find common ground. Andrew Cuomo has done that before, and he's the right person to do it now.
Let's talk about the future of the party. You've got right now $71,000 in your campaign account. You've got about $44,000 in housekeeping. That's not a lot of money. In addition, you were actually handpicked by outgoing Governor David Paterson. So I'm curious if you're going to stick around, A, if you and Andrew Cuomo have had that conversation, and B, what you're going to do in terms of changing things around and scaling back in a non-election year because you don't have very much cash.
Well, that's the story of the life of the Democratic Party.
I know.
We never have a lot of cash, but we raise our money, and if you take a look at how much was raised and how much came into the party from Andrew Cuomo and other sources straight through, you can see that when we need it, we get it. And yes, we have debts that have to be paid, and I'm going to work hard after the first of the year to get those debts paid. And, we're going to get that done, as we have always gotten that done. Now, as to the second part of your question, Andrew Cuomo and I have not sat down to discuss politics. I think he has been completely immersed in transition. I know he has, and I've seen it, and that's been his focus. And I would imagine that sometime after the first of the year, when the government is fully in order and he's got time to begin addressing the political equation, we'll have a time to chat about that, and I'm sure that I'll look forward to doing that.
Do you want to stay, just in parting?
Well, for me, I'm a volunteer here. I don't get paid in this. I do it because I enjoy it. I have enjoyed it to date. I have enjoyed the opportunities I've had to meet and work with so many great people across the state. People like our new lieutenant governor, who's going to be a superstar, Mayor Bob Duffy of Rochester. Pleasure to meet him and some of the others. So that part I've enjoyed. I have to sit down, see what Andrew Cuomo, our new governor, has in mind. That's very important. He's going to be deciding what type of state party he wants. And I'll see at that point when I talk to him, and he'll see whether or not it's the best idea for me to finish my term or not. But I'm not sweating it. I've got my job as Nassau County Chair. I've got big elections coming up in 2011. I've got great responsibilities still on the state level. I'm going to finish. And I'm a member of the Democratic National Committee. I enjoy that. So, I'm going to be active and involved however it pans out. But we'll see. We'll talk about it, and we'll let the chips fall where they may.
Well, I hope you keep us posted on that, Chairman, because I am very interested. In the meantime, I want to thank you very much, Jay Jacobs, for joining us, and Happy New Year to you.